It is officially 1 p.m., so we're going to kick off and get started. So first things first, thank you everyone for joining us for our first AI Governance Practically. This is one of many that we have in store for you. A lot of what we've talked about as a brand and as practitioners ourselves is why did we do this? And the way that we consider this series is really about a space for practitioners to share with fellow practitioners how they're actually going about governing AI, securing usage, and all of the in-between. Jaden and I, Jaden, the CEO of Maro, have had a lot of conversations with both security practitioners, GRC practitioners, all sorts of folks on the front lines really responsible for AI. And one of the challenges and also insights that we've had is there is so much wisdom out there as we've had many conversations. And so the idea to kind of bring together the brightest minds and really do a show and tell series was an easy one for us. So we're looking forward to this first one of many, and we are hoping that you follow us along in this journey as well. With that, a little bit of how this is going to go. So we want this to be casual for you folks, right? So we have 3 10-minute lightning talks lined up for you on very curated topics. So the chat is open. You can add Q&A at any time or add any kind of conversation starters in there. But ultimately, what we want to do is save that Q&A for the end when we have all 3 of these excellent practitioners together. We will have some polls throughout just to keep everything light and to get your perspective on things. And then at the end, because this is a beginning of a series, we really want to know what topics that you want to hear from us and members of this session. And moving forward, we would love to know a little bit more about how we did in this first session too. And with that, who you'll hear from today. So we've got on this session, we've got Teri Green, who is the VP of Technology at Elevate, Chris Honda, who is the Director of Security, Risk, and Compliance at Whistic, and then Chris Scowden is the CEO of Newbury Partners. Of course, if you don't know me, I'm Gwen Betts. I'm the co-founder and Chief Experience and Marketing Officer here at Maro, who is the host of this series. Each of these people will talk about themselves a little bit more at the beginning of their presentations. That way we can just jump right on in, and looking at time, looks like we are making great time of it. So I'm going to kick us off with introducing Teri, who's going to talk about the test approach with real-world applications. Teri, you want to take it over from here?
Yes. Hello, everybody. So I'm Teri. I break everything, fix nothing, okay? That's all I'm going to say for now. I'm actually going to talk about the test approach with some real-world applications. I know you're probably thinking, what is test? Well, hopefully you'll be able to answer some questions in relation to test afterwards, okay? So here, I want to be really, really clear before I kind of go here. When I say AI, AI figured something out, okay? I figured something out. And I figured out that high risk is not a finding, it's a feeling. And for a long time, we told people that they were the weakest link. Well, they're actually the greatest vector. So how do you turn that into a positive? We realize that governance and security has to actually come up at the same time, which is like unrealistic, right? We was never able to solve that gap. But guess what? We can now in certain ways, which is why I'm going to talk about tests. So I figured this makes I'm going to say something that make a lot of y'all security people upset up front. And I don't apologize, but AI isn't the risk, we are, okay? Most AI failures does not happen from some dramatic model escape or some cinematic exploit. A lot of times they happen from something that's just a little bit more familiar, like us, right? Human overconfidence. So in my first 18 years of being a CIO/CISO, I've realized we don't have an AI platform. We don't have an AI problem. We have a visibility problem. Organizations are using AI that really don't track outcomes, right? So we have to actually position this a little bit different. And today we're going to move forward with moving from policy becoming more like from theater to actually execution. Yeah, y'all down for the cause? Y'all ready to do this with me? Next slide, please.
This one?
Yes. See, so when a team says an AI feature is high risk, I understand their instinct, because high risk is not a finding, it's a feeling. And unfortunately, we cannot ship products predicated on feelings. At least I wouldn't want a product that way, right? So the test framework is like a practical 60-second scoring engine that I actually developed to run those feelings right into some defensible decisions. As we sit here and we think about who actually owns risks associated to AI, I want to be able to kind of make sure not only did I put my team in a good position, but I was putting myself in the best position, right? To be able to kind of make practical decisions for the organization. So it goes simple. 4 key questions. Test. What does it touch? What does it execute? What does it stores? And what does it trust? Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Just follow me here. You got to follow me. So when we start talking about touch, I want you to think about what does it actually touch? What data does it access? I don't want to hear anything about no PII. That sounds provocative. I'm going to need you to name it. If you can't name it, you can't claim it. What is it touching? Is it internal to the organization? Is it restricted data? Is it any of those? Just think in that context, right? So then think about what can it execute? That means what can you actually do? Does it trigger a workflow? Is it actually approval or denial? Because I don't know about you, if it's doing any of those things, you're not reviewing a chatbot within your organization. You're actually reviewing the actor within the business. So when I started thinking about those type of contexts, I started making sure that they were actually treated like humans, like employees, putting role-based access controls around them, being really intentional about what they can actually execute within my environment if I allowed execution. And it's a zero trust model over here. So they can't execute anything without a validation mechanism with a human in the fold. And I'm going to tell you why as we go over this, right? And then I want you to think about store. Like a lot of times we start thinking about like, what does it store? Is it logs? Is it embeddings? Is it internal documentation? Is it third-party sources? I don't know. But mainly when you think about this, where is it stored and for how long is it stored there? Because these are some key questions. And if you can't answer those clearly, you are no longer dealing with a policy. Retention is no longer a policy issue, right? It becomes a security blind spot because we don't have the answers to those particular questions. And then trust. What does it trust? Is it user input, internal documentation, third-party sources? Believe it or not, this is where most of the teams get hurt. Because it's not when AI is malicious, it's when it's persuasive, when it's uncertain, unchallenged. And mainly, this is where actual confidence get mistaken as trust, as truth. You know, and this is what's happening. And think about this. You pull up 4 different prompts. It's going to give you 4 different responses. And it's mainly because AI isn't the risk we are. We're the ones that's putting this data within the system, which is why I always say, look, ethics has to be operational when you start thinking about trust in a different lens. So we don't get to this and you'll say, Teri, well, how did you do this in your organization? I thought you never asked. Hit me with the next slide, please. And I'm from Chicago. So if I talk fast, say slow down. I probably ain't gonna slow down, but I will go back and look because I don't have AI to see your response for me, okay?
It's okay. I was a little trigger happy with the next few slides too. So y'all got a preview.
So check this out. This is actually what happened. Okay, so we're going to look at something called the messy middle. And Elevate, we evaluate AI like I acted like it was an energy advisor, right? So to help some low-income residents lower their utility bills. And the only reason that I'm starting to do this is because we just passed our AI policy. Now we got to go to AI strategy. And I want us to be able to kind of make sure teams are vested in this. Our teams are actually going to do a cause run. They're going to build their own agents to be able to solve a case within the organization. And then the EOT is going to actually look at it. And whoever wins will become the first AI agent to become an employee at Elevate. Okay. So that way they're vested in the process. So we're looking at that messy middle. We ran the test score. Guess what? From a touch perspective, it was accessible, that PII word, the utility history, high exposure. And then for 2, it was execution. It only provided advice. It did not change the bills, right? So being really, really clear on what you want to happen from an actionable phase. And then store, prompts were kept by a vendor for 30 days for model training. And then you have to make sure, how do you eradicate that? How do you make sure it's disappeared? Reverse engineering, right? And then trust, we hadn't yet audited the advisor for bias in diverse populations. And, you know, that's what our mind says. We have to think about diversification. Diversification can instantly become divorcification if you're not really, really keen on that, right? So now I'm going to tell you why this actually worked, because it worked, y'all. It worked. And we were able to kind of get a total score of 14, which we had moderate risk. which can give us actionable steps we needed to do to be able to kind of minimize that gap so that we would make sure we was doing the best for our clients. But while I also worked from a board perspective, it was in alignment with your NIST RMF. We didn't have to say, hey, we're coming up with a factual stance that doesn't work with a lot of things. We didn't do that. So this isn't just a homegrown checklist. Text operationalizes the NIST AI RMF framework. It tells you to govern tests, provides the trust pillar for a defensible chain of oversight, and then NIST tells you to map it out, map the test. And that's actually what we actually did. And that was more digestible. They understood it. It wasn't a whole bunch of new context coming their way, just a better way to be able to kind of operationalize it from a foundational piece, if it makes any sense. Go fight win. We want to the next slide. Y'all ready? And I'm quick because it don't take a long time when you done did it for a long time, right? And I tell people like this, if you ask me what is the one thing, the one key result, I'll tell you this. What actually happened is we closed visibility gaps and we gave our procurement teams a clear process / rejection score, right? But the biggest takeaway is ethics is operational. Every trust decision is a security decision. Every shortcut is a control gap. And if you can't explain how a human will interact with the system when it is wrong, you aren't measuring risk, you are measuring optimism. And unfortunately, optimism is not a security control. Hi, I'm Teri Green. If you can't remember anything, remember this. AI is artificial. You are the intelligence. And that's my hack to you. Now do yourself a favor. We miss 100% of the questions we never answer. Follow the test and take it. That's me.
Mic drop. Now, Teri, I know we've got Q&A for the end, but I had a personal question on, how you talked about NIST AI RMF. Were you folks, did you ever go through the process of getting, doing more of a full certification or mapping with that? Or are you just using T.E.S.T as your framework for it?
So I'm not using T.E.S.T as a framework. I'm actually using it as a standard, right? We don't need another framework. We need something to be able to kind of booster and hold it. And I mapped it to the frameworks that were already there. You had so many people trying to race to create the next AI framework. And I thought about some things that were really keen and some names that were really, really published and people actually trusted, because trust is a big pillar here. And from there, I just pulled mapping sets to be able to kind of make sure we were operationalizing it. Just like when you come up with any new thing like CMMC when they came out, right? We didn't reinvent the wheel. We mapped it to the frameworks that already existed. So I just took the same methodology.
Love it. No further questions from this side.
Awesome sauce.
Okay. So excellent. First one down. Brilliant job, Teri. Before we get to the next segment, because the talk is about this topic that you see on the screen, what we really want to know, because there has been debate, is how do you pronounce this? I've heard like 3 to 4 different ways. And then Meg here has a poll loaded up. I believe it's going. Yep. Let's see. About how it is pronounced. I don't know, Chris, Teri, do you want to come up on stage real quick and at least say your pronunciations?
I say ISO.
But what about the second half of it?
42001.
I would go ISO 42001.
I'm going to be thrown around a couple of times. It depends who you ask, but if you ask most of the certification bodies, they'll generally throw something out along the lines of ISO 42001. Though I'll always say it though, as long as I know that you're talking about this, I don't care that much. So,
okay, so what you're saying, even though I totally get it, me saying 4201 is wrong.
Yes. It's based on one's perspective.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I guess. I guess I could see where you're going to say that. I was going to say 4201 would be down to 0, but I could see where you'd come with that.
Yeah. Always a fun one. Okay, so there's variance. It's okay. And Chris, who is going to talk to us about ISO 42001 and bringing the standards bearer, the certifications bearer's perspective into it, is now going to take the stage. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me on. There's literally nothing cool or fun about me, so we can skip this slide and we can go right into the subject material. Yeah. So, but I mean, to this point, I am at Whistic. I was here, and then I went to a sweet company, data visualization company called Plotly for about a year. Helped them get the ISO 42001 certification as well, and I've recently come back. A lot of circumstances that go beyond that. I mean, that's a story for a different time. But yeah, I've done this standard twice, implemented this standard twice at 2 separate companies in the last calendar year. So, lots of experience and fun stories to share with that. Now, let's look at the next slide, please. This is really just a big recap of where we were, but I'll use this as an opportunity to talk a little bit about the standard. There's a little bit of debate as to what the ISO 42001 standard is meant to be. One of the ways that we've kind of boiled it down as an industry, broad sweeps, is now it's the standard around responsible AI use, and that's in multiple different capacities. So that's looking at from an internal usage perspective, how you develop models, if you do that, how you integrate other AI-based technologies into your platform, into your offerings. So that's a lot of where we're seeing around the certification right now. And I'll get ahead of it because a lot of my conversations I've had around this is it's not meant to be super prescriptive. So if you're looking for, hey, just tell me how to do AI securely, this isn't for you. Not that there's not benefit in it, but the whole point of, in my opinion, from my perspective, of pursuing ISO 42001 as a certification is so that you have essentially, and I know Teri just said we don't need more frameworks. I agree. It's for folks that don't have a framework or haven't chosen one to help them better understand what their needs are, so that if they want to build or if they want to adopt something like the T.E.S.T framework, the T.E.S.T standard, the T.E.S.T approach, then they can do that and do it in a more effective way than, well, I guess we're just going to slap the NIST AI RMF and call it good. It's meant to be a very introspective exercise to understand what your organization needs, what your customers expect from you, what regulatory pressures and burdens you might have, and build out processes and a broader AI management system or a program to help support those needs. So I mentioned that I've done this twice. So I was at Whistic when we first were pursuing certification. I brought this up more as I'm a bit of a nerd, and I think, you know what, if people are going to ask us about this, we might as well do it. And I like compliance stuff. Like I said, nerd. I forgot my glasses somewhere, so it works a lot better when I have the actual glasses pushing those up. It's this. I work for a security company is the way that I said it. We work for a security company and we work for security teams, and the burden of scrutiny tends to be a little bit higher when you're selling to security people. So my argument was, we know people are going to ask for something, and in light of the lack of something more prescriptive, why don't we just do something and do it as best we can? So that was my first experience with ISO 42001, and then going to Plotly and implementing it there. A lot of the same discussions have been had just shortly before I had joined, and the intent was similar. Well, we know people are going to ask for it, right? We're in this cool revolution where everyone wants to integrate AI into their products, into their services, and it's nice to have some sort of assurance before you get to the point of, well, how do you do AI? Or when you get those questions, how do you do AI? What kinds of technologies, of AI technologies, are you using? How is it being used? What's the nitty gritty of the implementation? Right? The standard isn't meant to address all of those, but it does, like I said, help you think about it and prepare for those kinds of questions. So by doing that, we've been able to sidestep not all, but a significant amount of the otherwise cumbersome questionnaire vendor review processes, specifically around AI. And I'll tell you, it's a little bit scandalous, but I think, right, we need a little bit more of those hot takes. It's not a super up-to-date standard, meaning it's still worth doing and it helps you set up a very strong program. But I mean, let's look back 6 months of what the state of AI looked like 6 months ago. It's totally different now, and it's going to be totally different again in another 3 to 6 months. So from that perspective, I mean, revisions for ISO don't come out more often than every 5 to 7 years or so. So we've had some time in the last 2 or 3 years that it's been out, about 2, coming up on 3 years at the end of this year. So again, if you're looking for something that's going to say, hey, State of the Union, how's everything in terms of the latest models, the latest and greatest, this isn't going to be that, but it does help you set up an approach for scalable growth, for scalable maintenance, as far as AI in your products and your organization goes. Let's look at the next slide, please. So the process, I'm going to take a little bit of assumed knowledge, but also give a little bit of background. If you've gone through an ISO audit before, it's very, very similar. The structure of the standard is maybe not identical, but congruent, I think is maybe an appropriate word there. So there, you have to engage a certification body, an auditor in non-ISO speak. And you have to say, hey, we want to pursue certification for this standard, these standards. You go through stage one, which is a review of the documentation for shorthand. So essentially, do you have your policies that meet the requirements, right? That's super fun part. And then you have to go through a stage two that shows that you meet the control requirements. Again, super exciting. Where it does get a little cool, and I think it overlaps pretty well with other elements of other standards, other frameworks, such as the NIST AI RMF, is where we start to get into things like the system impact assessment and deeper data provenance requirements and documentation. So, I mean, I can't talk too much about that, mostly because I'm afraid of getting sued by ISO. I encourage you to look at the standard, buy it if you think that it might be right for your organization, even if you don't certify it against it. I think it's a good exercise to go through and think about what is being asked of organizations that have the certification. It really is beyond, I guess I should say, a paper exercise. I think if you want to treat it as a check the box compliance activity, you can, but you can also take it as a very good catalyst, as a strong catalyst to think, okay, what do we need to consider as we add new features, as we add new products, as we add new services? Because when you take, like I mentioned, the system impact assessment, we're directed in the 42005 companion standard to consider the impacts of the AI system, of the products that we are using or providing, and how that's going to affect individuals, how that affects real people and groups of people. I mean, they have their own way of saying it, but we're supposed to document what do we actually think about. And again, if you want to take it in just a check the box exercise, I'd recommend strongly against that. But if you do it in a sincere way, with the goal of doing right by your customers, by the people that are using that you have relationships with in your organization, you're going to get a lot out of it, because there's going to be questions of, oh, I didn't think about that, or oh, how do we handle it, how do we approach this, how do we solve these problems? And that's where I think a lot of the value comes from, is it gives you a structure to think about problems that are otherwise a little bit maybe too broad or too generic, and it helps you focus on the things that are going to be most important to you, to your customers, and to your partners. I mentioned it a little bit before, but I think it bears repeating. This isn't going to stop people from asking you about your AI processes. It's not going to stop those questionnaires. It's not going to stop people from scrutinizing you and say, hey, we need to take a peek under the hood and make sure that everything's working. But it does give people a better, more pointed set of data to work with for those conversations. And so instead of, hey, let's hop on an hour-long call and you can walk us through the basics of everything, it's, hey, we read this, we read the supporting documentation, we'd like to see how you've implemented this specific process, right? So that's what I mean by, you know what, it's not going to answer all the questions, but it does help people target and hone in on the most important elements. And the nice thing about this is, I gave a talk about this last week with some great auditors. Won't give a shout out because I don't want to feel like I'm selling. I don't like selling to people. But if you're looking for someone to, on the other side, on the auditor side, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help share resources with people that have helped us. But this is different from, say, the NIST AI RMF, because it's standardized. There's not really a ton of flexibility between what you can and have to do. If you're certified, you're certified, and you had to do a lot to get there. As opposed to, again, the NIST AI RMF, I think is a fantastic tool. You just don't get a certification by saying you implemented it. So there is that assumed value on that, and having conversations with your customers, and it establishes a facet of trust in those relationships. Let's look at the next slide, please. I can't remember what was next. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So, right, having gone through it twice, I'll tell you, I was shocked by how different it was going through the certification process through two somewhat similar companies. I mean, two technology companies, pretty small, but very ambitious in terms of what we were wanting to achieve. But the goals are very different, and that's just purely by nature of being at a different organization. So, right, we've shifted the questions for both companies from, do you have, I put ISO 42000, but do you have some sort of security certification, some sort of attestation, right? Like not like a SOC 2 report. Do you have something that can tell us about how you've handled your AI? And that's nice. And that's been nice to shift that to, okay, what have you done, right? Tell us more about how you've achieved this, how you accomplished this, what your process is around this and that. It gets us more pointed questions, like I mentioned before, which has been more engaging for all parties involved, in my opinion. And it's helped us to really focus in on the things that we need to think of long-term that are going to be beneficial. Not just, oh, well, I guess we need to do this because compliance demands it, but because this is actually going to make a strong impact all around. And we've learned some other things, right? Like I mentioned, this is very similar to ISO standards. So don't be scared just because the subject matter is different. We still have the normative clauses 4 through 10, and then Annex A that tells you what controls you need to implement. I found it very fun, very engaging, because it really helps me think of, okay, well, how do we integrate this? How do we take this as a separation from this is how we handle AI to this is just how we do things at Whistic. This is just how we do things at Plotly, right? I think as a side note, it's important to say to share that part of my opinion where, you know what, I think it's just important to know how you handle things. There's always going to be edge cases and unique situations, but if you can handle things in a uniform way, that's all for the better, because now you don't have to worry about losing specific niche areas of knowledge. And this really helps you plan at scale, plan and prepare, which is going to take me into my last final thought is, I mean, the whole spirit of ISO is continual improvement, right? I mean, that's what a lot of our standards and frameworks and certifications and how we approach businesses, security and GRC practitioners in general is, how do we do things better? But this helps us scale it and frame it in a standardized way, in a manageable and digestible way. And not to hit it too finely again, I know I've said it several times, but the standard is not prescriptive. I know there's a lot of criticism around it, but I also think it's not meant to be, because this isn't supposed to be the end all be all. We're certified, therefore we're good at AI, right? That's not the message that we're trying to send. It's, you know what, if you don't know what to start with, or if you're having trouble unifying your language and your approach, this will probably help you with that. And then you find your unique situations and requirements and you build on top of that as well. Let's look at the next slide, please. I believe this is the last one. If I had to leave you with just the one thought, it's not nearly as poignant as Teri's, but I mean, it's just start. Just try is the way that I think about it. You can't get good at something unless you start. So if you try and then you improve on it and then you improve more and you get feedback and you make things better, that's all we can ask of ourselves and of the people that we work with, right? I think that that's what, when I say do things right by our customers, by our partners, that's really what I mean and what I think about is we're going to do our best. Then we're going to get feedback and we're going to understand what we can do better and how we can scale faster and more effectively. And then we do that. And we do that until there's just nothing left to do, which will never happen, right? But that's the vision that I have, because if you never start, you're never going to get it right. Things are just moving too quickly. So start and then improve. That's me.
Snaps, or what does the generation do right now? This. Something like that. Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. And then I know we had a poll already launched and several people have already answered, but we are wondering amongst the group too, how many have a formal AI governance program in place today? So please answer that, and then we can use that as a basis for Q&A later. And then last, but certainly not least, is another Chris of, lots of renown, Chris Scowden, who is going to talk to us about how he is empowering AI productivity at Newbury Partners. Chris, you want to take over?
Yeah, thanks so much. Quick high level. We're a consultancy that's focused on implementing technology for the staffing, the recruiting space. And really over the last year, we've been focused on how do we apply AI to our business to make us more effective. And ultimately that turned into a product offering and a solution that we now take to our customers. So go to the next slide. I can kind of walk you through a little bit of it. So we're about 85 consultants that are spread throughout the world, very niche focused, that we are all experts with deep history in the staffing recruiting space. So very, very kind of unique vertical. So we know those workflows really well. We've gone through several technology iterations of being the partners that have implemented the tech stacks for a lot of those companies. And as you can imagine, the new wave that has come through is, how do I apply AI to my business? How do I automate? How do I really drive my operating costs down in order to still meet the demand that's out there? And so what we have done is early on um, made the decision to deploy Teams licenses to everyone in the company, to get it out there, get it in their hands. We partnered with Maro so that we could see how people were using it, and which tools they were using, and then identify who our top users were in order to figure out their use cases and start evangelizing that across the organization. um, some of the learnings that we've had is it has to be role modeled by the leadership team. This is not something that you can just buy and turn on and expect people to figure out. And what we've also been able to do is take our learnings and create some work that we do for clients in helping them assess their governance policy. Do they even have one? What's the right models that they should be using? How do they protect against shadow AI? And people, what we're finding is if the organization is not delivering the tools to the individuals, they're going to go find them themselves. So as leaders, we have to make sure that we are giving the teams that we're asking to learn a new operating system, learn a new language, and how to work with AI. We have to give them the tools to do that, and so that's an investment that we have to make. Otherwise, they're going to go around us, and they're going to make that investment themselves, and then we have no control or no visibility on what content is getting put into the AI tools that are out there. So on the bottom, we've just got some kind of call outs that we typically see when we're talking with customers about enabling their executives and getting them bought into AI and seeing the vision. And then how do you go build a core team, and who are going to be your evangelists that really take the AI initiative and figure out the workflows and get into the process areas. Also, this is still pretty basic management consulting of applying AI to your process, because you have to go map the process. You have to understand the workflows and how work moves through the systems in order to determine how AI is going to uh, kind of augment or replace some of the human there. But you still have to have the human in the loop to validate before anything goes out the door. So some of the surprises when we get in and start talking to customers is they think they've got an IT policy out there that just says you can't use AI. And they're shocked when we go look at their systems, and there is every LLM tool out there, whether it's Gemini, Claude, OpenAI, Chat, whatever it may be, and they're shocked to realize that people just don't pay attention to those IT policies. And if they have to use it on their phone, they have to use it in private browsing, they're going to go find ways to leverage this tool unless we are providing it to them. The other piece is they really don't know what their teams are using. So there's no tool inventory. There's no governance committee that's reviewing opportunities and looking at new tools and asking the front line what they need and what they want to be working with, and giving them a process to bring that to the decision-making body. So that's just another best practice there. And if you've been kind of active at all this year, everything has been about moving towards agentic AI, building agents. Those are becoming so much easier to build that we're seeing non-technical people jump into tools like Cursor and Cloud Code and spin up agents on a weekend that are automating their work. And these are now writing to systems of record. And if we are not on top of it and aware of it, we lose all control and create a ton of risk in the organization. And so one of the biggest unknowns right now is we wrote all these governance policies for LLM chatbots. What's going to happen now that we're deploying agents at scale to our organizations? What has to change to that policy? So, to Teri's point, that test methodology is a good framework to be thinking about deploying agents into your organization. Like, what are they going to access? What are they going to write to? Like, all of that security has to be thought through before just dumping AI onto your workflows and let your team go. And then the last thing is we get in front of boards and they're like, all right, we've got a $250,000 investment in AI this year. What are we getting for it? And it's crickets, because we haven't taken the time to do the baseline and do the identify what are the KPIs that we should be tracking and what does ROI look like. So those are just some lessons that we're seeing as we're talking to customers. We're really in the mid-market, so call it the 20 to $500 million firms is where we're doing most of our work at. There's a couple billion-dollar publicly traded firms, but that's the exception for us. But these questions come up across the board, no matter what size organization we're working with. You want to go to the next slide? So the way we were able to scale this internally is it took a lot longer than I ever anticipated, because I was drinking from the Kool-Aid day one on AI and how it's going to transform my job, how it's going to transform my business. And I just thought, hey, if I get everybody the tools, they're going to see this and they're going to figure it out. It took us 9 months and we're still not there. I think we're further along than most, but we've got a long way to go. And the way that we did it is we role modeled it as the executive team first. So 10 to 12 of us really figuring out how AI changed what we did, and then had the examples to take down to our teams and explain to them, show them how it's making us more productive. And then we started to get folks raising their hand saying, yep, I've been experimenting with it. I want a license. I want to be part of this. And so we created a core team that just started growing over time. And it was just that natural attraction of, I want to be part of the cool kid club and figure out AI. And so those 4 or 5 early adopters became 10, and they developed their skills over the back half of last year. And then they realized, hey, my peers aren't getting the value of this. They have the licenses, they just don't trust it. They don't know how it applies. So they built a training program that was hands-on, small groups, 4 to 6 people, every other week. And they were taking these teams through how to apply AI. They were figuring out use cases, what were their biggest problems in delivering their work, and they were solving in the moment and building. And so that's how we started to get adoption over the first quarter. And so now it is something that's living and breathing in our organization. We made the switch from ChatGPT to Claude earlier this year. And I call it full adoption. I still think I've got probably 15, 20% of the organization that hasn't bought in yet. And so we're leaning in and doing one-on-ones with them. So there's some things that you have to do. You have to make a decision on the tool. If a $20 or $30 a month license is not going to generate 30 minutes of time savings for a person, you're doing something wrong. So it should be a no-brainer for this investment that's out there. But you can't just turn the tool on and expect them to use it. So you have to show them the value there, and then give them a clear policy of how to use it, what's approved, and it is valuable to their daily tasks. So we're on version 5 of our governance policy. It just keeps evolving as we see new stuff. We look at it probably every 6 to 12 weeks to make sure that we're thinking about the changes and how quick this is evolving. And then you have to develop the training. And it is the most valuable things that we can do is hey, walk me through your process, show me where it's breaking down, what's painful for you, what reports are painful. All right, let's just go ask AI how it can help us do that. And it's just in the moment of solving use cases where light bulbs start to go on, and we start to get that traction towards it. We've also created a maturity model for individuals. So they take a survey at the end of all the testing, and they score themselves level 1 to level 5 of how mature or how strong are they at their AI skills, how comfortable are they. And then we have plans to help move them up. It's part of their quarterly scorecards and the training that they sign up for. And then we're encouraging folks to come up with ideas of how AI could help their process. And we just have a backlog of tasks that we want to try to apply AI to. And the team votes on what's the highest priority, and we apply resources to that. And so that's how we're trying to figure it out internally. And it's become something that we take this model to customers as well. But it's all been volunteers that have had excitement and passion and seeing the change there. And so that's how we scaled it. If we go to the next slide, I think just some of the high level that came out of our Q1 survey. So this is after we completed the training. Confidence went up, daily usage almost doubled. The team are saying they're saving 3 hours per person per week. That's huge for us. I mean, it's 12,000 hours. If I multiply that out, it's about $800,000 of productivity gains. It hasn't hit my bottom line yet, so I'm still looking for that. But this is what the team is telling us. So we're going to keep a good eye on that. And then we've doubled folks that consider themselves power users. So I talked about licenses do not equal adoption. You have to train these folks. I still got 16% that say they rarely or never use AI. They don't trust it. They had a bad experience. It hallucinated. That's just it's the tools are getting so good that's not happening very often anymore. And so it's getting them over their initial challenges. And then the feedback was the top users, they want more advanced content. They want to know, how do I go to the next step? How do I build with AI? How do I stop using it just for email and strategy and writing reports and research? It's okay. How do I build dashboards and workflows and agents? And so they're developing those skills. And ultimately that becomes valuable for us to take externally to the market. Then next slide.
And Chris,
So,
just doing a quick time check too. So I know we have this and one left, but just quickly.
Yep, we're good.
Appreciate you.
So for us, I think we talked about what we're closing the gaps. We'll continue to check in with our folks, do quarterly surveys. We've got a really deep backlog of things that we want to move towards automating next. And we've already automated sales campaigns and quoting, project management, dashboards, and budget tracking. Now we're moving into automated creation of projects and contract ingestion and invoice generation. So we're going step by step through the organization to figure out which workflows to tackle next. And then this has turned into a product that we're taking to market of AI agents for the middle office to handle time processing and invoice generation and matching against VMS systems, and all of the manual process that just gets lost in the back office of a business that is highly transactional, that's probably dealing with 2,000 paychecks every week, and matching those two contracts. So we've now built agents to attack that process, and we're scaling our internal learnings into products that we take to the market. So the key here was I had to be the evangelist and the leader out in front and saying, we are going to be an AI organization, and then getting folks to follow along, but also investing in the tools and taking the time to pay attention to governance and give people instructions on how to use it. So that was the big one there. And then the last slide. for us is really figuring out, as everybody moves to agents, and these things are going to be writing content to system of record, what is that AI policy, and what's that governance policy for agents? So that's us. Happy to share any information. All the contact info's there. Yeah, would love any feedback.
Chris, lots of wisdom drops there. Love it.
Cool. And we
And
got
then
15 minutes, so we're on time.
Yeah, we're making great time. And, you know, my point of view always is like the content is great. So I'd rather spend as much time on the content as possible. We do have some questions, though. I believe Meg is getting them prioritized for us. So we have a few that people did submit ahead of time. There were some that were submitted in the chat. And then if we don't get to every question, we will share out answers after the fact with our newsletter as well. So at least we're getting you answers. One question came in via the chat. It was probably for the group, but how should organizations balance innovation with regulation? Since we did talk a lot about regulation, a bit about regulation in this session. How do you balance the two? Who wants to take that first? Teri, I see you.
I didn't say anything. I didn't see that one. I actually prepared for a different one, but
Actually, yeah, go right ahead.
I would say, like, when you start thinking about, repeat the question again so I can make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
How do you balance innovation with regulation?
Well, the truth of the matter is, it's like anything when you think about AI governance in general, it's more than what the model know. You have to be able to think about who owns it, who touches it, who executes it, and then what, you know, and then at the same time, you have to be able to think about what happens afterwards, right? And then you have to have a way to measure it. So using tool sets, I don't know if you guys have used Maro, but we actually brought Maro within our environment. And one thing I can say personally is, it's one thing to have AI policy. It's one thing to be able to kind of make sure that you're holding people accountable for that particular policy. So you have to have some control in place where you're able to kind of bring some data justifications, because it'll help you figure out the glows and grows within your environment. And that's how I've been able to do it. I don't know about anybody else.
I think
Yeah,
it had my name on it. So yeah, I lean way towards the innovation side of, let's go as far and as fast as we can, and let's see how, as much as we can do with this, and what's the ideal solution, and then before we implement, it's okay. What are the regulatory concerns? What are the privacy concerns? And then if I have to scale it back a little bit, I'm already at the kind of cutting edge and the most aggressive I can be there, so that I'm going to get the most amount of gains, rather than starting with the regulation and kind of putting myself in a box and trying to work my way out of it. I want my team thinking as big as they possibly can, and then we can look at the concerns and the risks and kind of drill it back with an eye towards, okay, how do we mitigate those long term and get back to our ultimate solution that is as optimized as possible.
I mean, Chris, I think the interesting space that we find ourselves in is AI regulation, at least in the US, is still it's still in flight. There are state regulations, and then I know there's a lot of federal preemption that could be coming too. So it's kind of like what's the saying? Like, we're building the plane as we fly it and trying to figure out like what can we prepare for while staying on the bleeding edge, that I find a really fascinating space right now. Cassandra, like you wanted to say something too.
Go ahead.
Cool. I was going to say, I mean, the one thing for us is we specifically targeted parts of the process that were not regulated right now. So if you look at New York, New Jersey, Colorado, California, they all have regulations around AI in decision-making processes, particularly around candidate selection and screening and which jobs you present to them. We went right towards the meat of like the transactional process-driven area that didn't have regulation, because this is all about how do we get people paid faster, more accurately, get dollars applied to the business more accurately. So we did not want to touch any of the top of the funnel stuff, because it's a crowded market. There's a lot of people up there and it's high risk. we want to go where there's just high value.
Oh, I got a question. Can I say something? Because Chris, before my other Chris talk, I don't want to get y'all names confused. But Chris, as a CEO that is full of innovation, which I love, I couldn't be your CIO or CISO because my hair would be gray, because you said that you're going to do the innovation first and think about the regulations last. And if you do take that, how do you actually take the onus off of your cybersecurity or your technology leader? Are you taking ownership for that?
That or my, yeah, I mean, yeah, mostly me. Unfortunately, we're a small organization, so I don't have a CISO or a chief technology officer. So it's mostly us.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
But Chris, I think what was important that you said too is like you actually are paying attention to the regulations, and you're intentionally trying to focus the innovation around where there is not a lot of regulation right now too.
Correct.
So it's good distinction. Other Chris.
Teri, you read my mind. The way that I look, that my organizations have looked at it in the last year or so is kind of uniform, right? In terms of, well, what are we willing to accept on a risk perspective, right? If we're willing to break regulation and pay the fines, then we'll do that. That's never been the case, right? But we ask that question so we know where the baseline is, right? And that helps us set the understanding of, okay, we have to understand the laws, what applies to us, what doesn't. And that helps us put, right, kind of like Cool Chris was saying, it helps us figure out what that box is of what we, but instead of the box that we just stay in, it's more of the box of the stuff we don't touch.
Right.
As soon as we figure out, hey, we can't do this, or this, great. Go and innovate, build whatever you want to do, as long as we're not doing those things that we've already understood as risks that we're not willing to accept. And then either from that perspective, from that point, we figure out, okay, we want to try these things. We can either mitigate this risk doing these certain different things, or we just avoid it because it's just not worth the effort. And that has given us, I think, a balanced approach of, yeah, maybe we're not innovating quite as fast, but then we don't have to backtrack and pull back on other things where, you know what, we didn't take this consideration. It's not for everybody, but then again, our orgs are all different. That's the conversation, right? It's a lot of what we talk about is really going to depend on what our leadership and what the folks running the ship are going to feel is most appropriate and important for our company. So they say, well, this is what we want to do. We want to make sure we follow the regulations. Great. Here's what the regulation says. Here's what applies to us. Everything else, go wild and have fun.
I love it. All I'd be looking at is, where's the RACI chart? As long as I'm not accountable for a decision I didn't make, I'm good.
Exactly. And right, then we go that extra half a step and say, hey, person that is responsible and accountable for this, these are some things you should know as you make your decision. Otherwise, tell me what you need done.
Well, Chris, while we have you, we did have a question about accountability, right? Like RACI and accountability. How do we document AI responsibilities and ownership? And when it comes to AI risk, then in return, how do you audit agent behavior retrospectively? So those are kind of two questions. Let's do the first one first. How do you document AI responsibility and ownership?
This sounds like it's a question for Cool Chris.
How do we document AI responsibilities and ownership? Yeah. I mean, we've got our AI core team that has taken on the mantra of being enablers to the organization rather than gatekeepers. So they're encouraging folks to find new solutions and bring them to them. And they're looking for ways to deploy that across the organization rather than be in the office of no. They're trying to encourage folks to find a new tool that's out there. And I mean, that's how we got connected to Maro. Is one of our team members had somebody go to work there, and they said, this looks like a cool company, maybe we could use them. And so that's how it got brought to the governance committee.
Love it.
I got an answer for this one. I actually was ready for this one, guys. You ready?
Okay, this is a soft lob for you.
Yeah. So the truth of the matter is, and it's only because I've had to do it. Like, I think we kind of, when we think about AI, we think about like it's another tool, and it's really not another tool, right? It's actually more like another actor within your unit. So every AI system should have a name. When you start thinking about a RACI perspective, it should have a name business owner, a technical owner, a security owner, and an approval authority, because shared accountability only becomes no one's accountability. And then when you start thinking about from retrospective about auditing the agents, you audit AI agents the same way you would investigate a security incident. You preserve prompts, actions, connected systems, approvals, outputs, time steps, and decision paths, so that you can actually reconstruct what the agent actually did after the fact. So it's just like going in and say, hey, I'm gonna go in after this incident occurred, and we're gonna write this down so we can be able to figure out, make sure it doesn't happen again. It's about, and that's the way I've actually done it. And I've actually did it with a part of my test aligned with some of the things I just did a small test segment, even using Maro to be able to kind of make sure the AI policy I just had approved was actually legitimate. And Maro don't even know about it yet until we get on a call, but it actually worked, right? And I was able to get my new AI policy approved within 2 days, and that's going in front of the EOT. But having them be a part of that RACI matrix and say, hey, y'all are accountable too. So I started with leadership, but that's how I did it.
Love it. Snaps. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to pull it from the live chat. And since it's at the bottom, we have a question around how can local regulators, universities, and private companies collaborate on AI standards? What do we think?
Who
So, go ahead, Teri, please.
I was going to say it should be Chris Honda. They go first.
Yeah,
You're killing me.
We'll defer.
My favorite technique is just silence to see who steps up. So
Love it. So, I mean, the first thing that comes up is that really fun XKCD comic about how everyone's unhappy with the standards that are there. So that's how you get 15 standards instead of 14. I think one of the best ways to go about that is to look at what standards, frameworks, and offerings are out there, because there's a lot, right? Even with AI in its current incarnation being reasonably new, they're out there, right? That's where you go see how NIST will let you get involved, right? Same thing with ISO. See what committees you can sit on, or right. And I mean, reach out to Teri. I'm not to volunteer you, Teri, but right. I mean, if there's feedback on frameworks like that, usually. Sometimes folks will be open to saying, well, this is why we made this decision, or you know what, maybe there's ways that we could change this or adapt this in a different perspective. So I mean, a lot of times it's just asking, right, and being able to do that, as opposed to building a new framework, because that's how we go from 14 to 15 to 20 to 30 to 50 frameworks, and then now everyone's got a different flavor, and it's a lot of extra redundant work. So yep, Meg found it. Meg found the cartoon.
excellent. Okay, so we only have a few minutes left. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone here who presented their lightning talk, who gave us so much wisdom, and who stayed on board for the Q&A. Before we wrap up, I just want to say a quick word about Maro. So for those who don't know us, we're Maro. We are a security garden that helps organizations adopt and secure AI usage. We do that with a combination of a browser extension. So it sits in your workforce's environment and is able to not only observe what they're doing and engaging with AI, but specifically what data and content they're sharing, and then acts as a guide and a real-time enforcement layer for your policies in case somebody is doing something with AI that is against policy. But we also give tools to you, the security team or the CEO or the IT team, to actually manage that policy, manage any kind of incoming violations, and ultimately create a better AI exposure risk posture overall. So if you're at all interested in talking to us here at Maro, you know where to find us, and we'll send out more information after the fact. But as far as AI governance practically goes, we will return next month. We're going to do these every single month. So if you want not only this recording, but if you want to sign up for the next session, just subscribe to our companion newsletter, AI Risk, actually, and you'll get that sent straight to your inbox. And then I think at the end, we do have a small survey that we would love for you to fill out. This is anonymous, so do not worry about hurting our feelings. I am a UXer and marketer by trade. My favorite conversations are the ones where I get yelled at, so I learn a lot. So please rate our session, give us feedback, and hopefully we see you for the next one. Awesome. Thank you.
We're becoming poets, actually.
I know. So this, I don't know what this is called, but this is absolutely what Gen Alpha is doing. I just don't know what it's called. It's like the world's smallest violin.
Some sort of ASMR thing.
Oh, probably.
It's actually what they do for poets. Like if you go to
I know, I write like poetry slams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, friends.